I'm great, Peggy. Thanks so much for having me in your process, and happy to speak to you today about some of the trends in the pet industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such a pleasure to have you. We've met before, and you're one of those great visionary leaders. And you have a brand which is called the Rooted Owl. No,
That's correct,
such a big name. Let's start there. I mean, tell us about that.
thank you. Yeah. So, Peggy, people have commented that they like the name, which is great because most of the other names really have, dogs and paws and things like that out there. But for us, a brand has to have a recognizable name, and that's how we chose Rooted Owl. And really, it's rooted in nature because we are all about natural ingredients and science, and the owl brings the wisdom and the science in it. So that's how we designed the logo, and that's how we designed the name, and the two parts of it being rooted in nature and being science backed, which is all what we are about, is how we came up with the name Rooted Owl. And at the end, you just grow the brand, and the name gets recognizable, like Pepsi or Coca-Cola. Like, what does that really mean? But
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
all about building a brand.
become known like that. That would be
I hope
fantastic,
so.
right?
Well, that's the yeah.
But
So
whilst you and I know what you're doing, what is the product you're selling?
we are a very unique science-based supplement brand, pet supplement brand, and we have 15 supplements. Nine of them are functional supplements like joint and muscle, cardio, blood, urinary, mushrooms for immunity, and so forth.
Mhm.
Functional, and each of these supplements only have one or two ingredients. We don't believe in any fillers. It's just the active ingredient in a mini capsule. And then we also have a hemp line, which is what we started before with. We did a clinical study on anxiety for dogs, and we felt that was a big space, and so we did a clinical study on an oil, spent a year on a CBD oil, and then we have a hemp line which also has a few other products related to that, and so it's all supplements which are all have health benefits and have research behind what health benefits these bring um, to humans and to pets, because we are all about human grade ingredients that work as well as they do in humans, also for pets. And so we are unique in that side.
Fantastic. So, looking at the space, the kibble space, and the shampoo space, and the supplement space, there's lots of commoditized product out there, right? So it's a space which is very crowded. So how do you get your share of voice?
Yeah, so for us, we are seeing a trend, and the trend has started with better quality food, and so gone are the days of the standard kibbles with not much science behind it, and then came more science-backed kibbles and food, and then more fresh food, and so that trend is continuing, and supplements fit in there, as when we all are conscious about nutrition, we start with food, and then after food we think about what else can we give to increase either the immunity or the health of the pet, and so we think the supplements fit in really well. um, the question is that how early we are, and I think we are early in other countries, because I have been exploring joint ventures in other regions of the world. And of course, everything starts from the US. So the US, the trend is pretty strong, but not yet in other emerging countries that are still thinking about food, like, countries like India, for example. I mean, and then we feel that the consumer or the pet parent wants their pet to live as long, which comes in the trend of longevity, right? And so that's the prime focus. And for that, it's the environment, it's the food, and it's the supplements that go in with there. So I think the growth in those markets are more than the growth in like toys, for example. How
Yeah,
many
yeah.
toys do you need? I mean, that's what my thoughts are, because they're just a lot of toys, and it's about boredom is why you get a toy for, and to keep them happy, or so forth. But it doesn't really improve anything with their with their health, except for, of course, just some happiness. But yeah.
Of course, of course. So if you're looking at your supplement, so you said one of the key markets is the US, right? So how are
That
you
is the key mark. Yeah.
so how are you distributing your product in the US?
Yes. So, we started with an e-commerce strategy, given that, based on the research that we've done, and also received, the supplement market is slightly different than all the other pet products that are out there,
Absolutely.
um,
Yes.
because they are small, easy to ship. Um, in the COVID time, the e-commerce business started to increase a lot. So our estimates are anywhere from 50 to 70% gets sold e-commerce,
Mhm.
versus some of the other pet categories that are less, more
It's a
like
bit the same with
30%.
humans, right? It's a bit the same with human
It
supplements.
is.
A lot of
It
the
is.
supplements, if I look at iHerb or, there are lots of
That's
brands
correct.
that are really, yeah, who are mastering online.
and
Absolutely.
and a lot is happening in the e-commerce platforms. Our most prominent platform is Chewy. So we started with Chewy about 8 months, almost a year ago, and we are growing extremely fast there. We're selling well there, and we were really well received in Chewy. And we have been highlighted as one of the top brands emerging there. And the reason for that is, the consumers, when they go to Chewy, they also buy pharmaceutical products, and really high quality pharmaceutical products. And ours, even though their supplements fit really well with
Yeah.
pharmaceutical products, because we make it in a pharmaceutical way. So we and then so it's Chewy and it's Amazon, and those are the two big e-commerce channels, and we are in both those channels, and we have our own store that we are growing, and building the consumer and brand awareness.
Nice.
But other than that, there are different, there's, you've got
Yeah.
Walmart, you've got Petco, you've got a lot of other platforms, you've got other platforms that are emerging almost every month, that are trying to bring pet parents and pet and brands together. And so um, one just has to be cognizant of that, and focus on the right efforts in the e-commerce channel. So that's what we started off, and now we are launching into stores, because our strategy is that you have to have an omni-channel strategy, which is, you have to have Instagram, you have to have social media, you got to have your own website really well, and you got to like push the e-commerce platform. But the consumer will go to a store and hear about your brand, and maybe use the store also for brand awareness, and then possibly switch to e-commerce. You got to be in both places. You can't
Places.
just be, yeah.
So
uh,
let me ask Karan, let me ask you one thing. You're talking a lot about the consumer and where the consumer finds you. Who is your perfect consumer? Who do you think should be your perfect consumer?
well, yes, and that's a very good question, Peggy, because that's exactly what we have to focus on. Our consumer is, aged 20, late 20s, 28 to like the 50s, and primarily we find women are more the decision maker, or the one that actually buys the
Yeah.
product, than the men. So so it's basically, in the younger age group. It's young couples that haven't had kids and may want to delay that, and they want to have family, and they're bringing in a dog, and they look after the dog or the cat as their own child. So that's one. And then you have you know um, yeah, mid-aged you know people
Yeah.
that would care for their
Okay.
pets. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So
Um,
if you look at the rooted owl as a household product, right? Like, is that something you can imagine, like that becomes like a standard for the pet parent?
well, I believe so, Peggy. I'll tell you why. Because there is no brand like Rooted Owl out there that is doing the quality of work and with the science and the clinical studies supporting the
Let me
products.
just
And
interrupt you there quickly. Sorry,
yes,
Karan. Because you're talking a lot about science and you also said it natural. But so how do you marry the two and what does what mean?
yeah. So science, by science, we mean that the ingredient or the products either went through a clinical study or
Mhm.
has documented a lot of research. For example, our joint and muscle, which is got UC2 collagen and L-carnitine, um, that UC2 collagen went through 22 clinical studies where they used UC2 versus glucosamine versus placebo on many dogs, Labradors and golden retrievers, and they measured their activity and distance, and so they did a full-blown clinical study on UC2. So, and similarly, like our weight management has L-carnitine. There's 11 clinical studies on how L-carnitine promotes muscle and in the right dosage actually has shown to have reduction in weight. So by science, I mean we have no fillers in any of our products. Like if you look at a packaging of any product we pick up, they've got 30 ingredients, of which 28 of them I don't even know what they are.
Yes.
They've got colorings and they've got all these other substances that may or may not interact in the right way for what you're trying to provide. So we don't believe in that. We believe in the exact molecule of an ingredient, like turmeric, for example. Even though turmeric is natural, it's from the herb turmeric, but it is standardized in a pharmaceutical way, processed, to have curcuma, and that is what we use, and that's got either a lot of research behind it. So by natural, we mean it's not produced in a as a drug. It's naturally occurring in
In nature.
in plant, in nature. Yeah.
In
And
nature.
we extract
So,
that, and then we put that through a pharmaceutical process that then takes the natural ingredient and puts it in an exact amount
mm.
of what you need, and all that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so if you look at that, how relevant is that for the consumer? And what do you think the consumer should know about Rooted Owl in one sentence if they're like, let's say 25, right? Let's not take the middle age, but let's take like a young consumer, of the new generation. What should they know?
well, they should know that that what Rooted Owl brings is truth to what we claim. We are not just marketing bullshit that's out there. We believe in what works. So I would tell them that if you want something that has efficacy and works, that's what Rooted Owl is about. We don't disguise our ingredients in powders or in treats and things like that, because we don't believe those things work. So we are true to the vision, is providing them uh, with the true concept, of health. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
So, Karan, what do you say? Because a lot of the kibble industry, right, they're like arguing that their food is balanced. Now, you could also argue that if somebody, I mean, sorry for that, but somebody could feed a shitty food and just use your supplement. Would that work for the dog?
Um, that's a good question. I would say that you have to do everything in conjunction. It's gotta be decent food. It's got to be, and the supplements. But if you use not very good food, you will have certain ingredients missing from your body,
Yeah.
and so I think from that point of view, you're much better using supplements to supplement yourself with the minerals and the ingredients that the food doesn't have.
Have.
If you use even good food, um, you don't know whether it's delivering the right
Minerals and
minerals, and
nutrients. Yeah.
whether it's being, you know wasted by, going through the acid of the esophagus and being, absolutely
Yeah.
removed from there, or whether it's actually delivering to you the way it should be delivered. So I think that all of, food is important, supplements important, but supplements can, of course, help a situation where, you don't have access to great food.
Yeah.
It's possible. Yeah.
What's your vision of this industry? Because there is a part of this industry which seems to be very old and still stuck in the Stone Age, right?
Yes.
And then there are people like you who are steering the pot. Let's put it this way. So at the beginning, before this interview, we basically kind of said, there's lots of dynamics. So where do you see the key dynamics in the industry currently?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Um, there are a lot of, brands that are trying to deliver, supplements to the market. But for us, um, sorry, Peggy, just repeat that question. My thought went a little bit away. Yeah.
Well,
You
don't
know,
worry about it. Don't worry about it.
yeah.
As I asked, so we talked about the industry evolving and really like changing, right? So
Yeah.
where do you see this industry heading, independent of your product? Like, where do you see it's heading? Where, where are the new trends, and where
Yeah.
where does that come in?
Yeah, so it all has to do with longevity and
Mhm.
humanization of
Yeah,
pets. So all the trends that you're seeing that are taking place in the humans in many ways are all being transferred into the pet industry, because it's just an extension of us. Humans are the pets, and so that's important to know. And so, looking at what supplements have done in the humans, we
yeah,
know that it's the humans and the pet parents are the ones who are making the decision, right? So
okay,
it's not the dog who's going to be making the decision to buy. It's going to be the pet parents going to make the decision. And so that's a trend, with the humanization that's taking place. I also think that consumers want the truth and want something that work. They're fed up of trying different things and being frustrated with various products that don't deliver
yeah,
what they do. Um, um, so the marketing promises, have to be true to the product, and they cannot diverge. So sometimes you can have a shitty product, but it sells a lot, because they have a lot of marketing around there. I think
yeah.
that trend will start to shift because, you know consumers will realize that they want something that actually works. So I think
Yeah, you
that's
hit
that's
on a super important point here, Karan, because I
yeah.
think one of the things is what this industry is actually struggling with, in my opinion, is education. And I'm calling this education because there's a big difference between information and education. So, where is this going to head? Where's this heading? Like, is
Yeah.
there, do you think there are formats out there which could be interesting in the future on the AI platforms, or where do you think that is the whole thing is heading?
Yeah, well, I think another point to make is that I find the veterinarian community, they're stuck a little bit to the old methods, and what's happening there is also happened a little bit on the human side. Is, when you go to your regular doctor, they know exactly what, what medicine, whether it's a cholesterol medicine or what's it's a heart medicine, what is the exact dosage. So, but they don't know how to deal with, let's say CBD, which is becoming
Yes.
very, very. It helps a lot of patients, but they don't know how to dose it. They don't not. So one trend, one, the doctor community, the medical community has to move more into holistic and integrative medicine, which is
Yeah, approaches.
looking at different approaches rather than just one traditional approach of diagnosis and prescription, and so it's very
Yeah,
easy to do a diagnosis and prescription, but um, we know that these drugs, they also have a lot of side effects, and they also do not help. Maybe they don't look at the root, but they look at the symptom, and so those,
yeah, it's
so
very
it's a
interesting.
little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And there's an awakening in the human, right? The human awakens in the sense of, okay, what alternatives do I have to my, medical or pharmaceutical product? They start, as you said before, the trend comes from the human to the animal. So I always jokingly say, if you go to a vet, they do two things. They give you antibiotics or an anti-inflammatory.
Yeah,
That's kind of the thing you get. And that's not a solution, a long-term solution. And I think this is where, the veterinary, obviously not all of them, but a lot of the veterinary industry is a bit behind. And it could be an interesting, don't you think? It's an interesting exercise. How do you get more veterinarians into the awakening, right?
yeah, yeah,
Using a supplement like yours, which is
yeah.
actually, backed with research and completely natural.
Yeah. No, I think it's a shift that we all have to be part of. I mean, and from conferences to education to interacting with the vet community that thinks similarly and try to grow that vision to a wider community. I think is very important. And you mentioned about education. I think that's very, very important also to the consumer and to the veterinarian in some ways that, there are
Yes.
other ways. And the veterinary bills are extremely expensive,
Yeah.
and so also I think insurance will develop.
Yeah.
There'll be various insurance plans that consumers can buy and so forth. And yeah, so
That's gonna be a game changer.
yeah.
So if you had a vision, where do you think are the three things that are going to change a lot in the next 10 years in this industry? What are the three things where you go, this is going to change?
Yeah, I think that well, um, you will see um, insurance very
Yeah.
common,
Yeah.
and it could be even mandatory in some ways.
Interesting. Yeah.
Insurance. It could
Yeah.
be, so
Yeah.
insurance is definitely going to be well, I don't know whether whether kibbles and things like that are going to remain. Like if you got farmer's dog and you've got
Yeah.
food for pets and all these, mm, bringing in really more home cooked type of food. I think that could be a lot more
Another trend.
prevalent. Lot
Hmm.
more prevalent,
Yeah.
to the fact that maybe sometimes people start making food at home for the,
Yes.
I know a lot of people who do a lot of bulk cooking with a lot of
Yeah.
wonderful vegetables and great natural, food stuff, and then they just feed the dog that, and so I think that could be a big change. Um, yeah, Peggy, you caught me there, but that's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking,
I'm kind of thinking,
and
where AI, for example, will play a role, or wearables, right? So,
yeah,
what you see is the wearables for humans is, sorry, that's my crop, is
yeah,
a huge business. Like if you look at the Aura rings and,
yeah,
for humans, I think that might be a trend which is going to spill over into our industry, into our pet industry. And that's going to also, change, I think, your business in a way, potentially,
yeah,
because then
yeah,
people might see, my dog has a slight inflammation, or,
yeah.
there is a problem with his muscles, or, what do you think about that?
No, I think that is, because a large part of it is that they don't even know what these problems are and why these problems exist and how do you treat them and how do you even prevent them. And um, um, So yes, I agree. Wearables would be a trend. Um, what we have been, I didn't mention to you because it happened after we met the last time we did, but we know we are working with some scientists that are developing a new diagnostic system that they've started to place in clinics now. They've got
Mhm.
lots of orders, and it's a holographic 3D imaging, with different blood and diagnostic systems and so on and so forth. Well, this huge system, that it's going to basically spit out a report where it looks at all the different markers that you have and what current situation problem you may
Wow.
get, or what you may be predisposed to, and so on and so forth. And then it connects to a supplement. And they chose us, by the way, Rudral. So this
So
report
interesting.
is going to say that this thing is
Amazing.
happening. You go
Yeah.
to rule out liver, you go to rule out blood, and all that. So I'm excited about that venture now. And they have AI incorporated into it. And the other trend would be having, like, I'm trying to build an AI vet kind of on my platform, so that if anyone wants to come and talk about stuff, well, there will be an AI kind of a vet there,
Very
at
nice.
at their disposal, because all the information is all out there,
Yeah.
and yes, it is the doctor who makes a certain subtle,
Yes.
diagnosis and so on and so forth, but a lot of I find that consumers don't have access to the vets. There are very few vets. They're expensive, and so if they want to have more knowledge, AI is going to play a big role in that too. In
That's a
case,
very good point. Karan, this is very visionary also because there's lots of information, but you have to cluster it in order to digest it. And I think
yeah,
that's the problem, right? Because if a normal consumer today goes online and asks a question, there are 50,000 answers.
yeah,
One
yeah,
way. The other way is, where is AI going to take them? Because that we all don't understand. We don't understand if the consumer asks a question to ChatGPT, for example.
yes,
We don't know what the answer is going to be. So I
yes,
think to kind of construct something as you're planning it could be very interesting because it kind of directs the consumer with the right question to the right product, which is fantastic.
yeah. No, um, and then I think just another opportunity, I think, is really global growth. I come from a very global background because I did a lot of global things,
Yes.
in my previous career before I started the company. And we launched in Mexico with Petco,
Yeah.
this month, and there are a lot of interesting things happening around the world that I don't think people are so focused in the US. So I think that's one of my points that I'm looking at, which is, while the US is the most important market, don't ignore the other markets. I think there's a lot happening
There's
there.
a world out there, right?
Yeah,
There's a world. So
yeah.
thank you, Karan, for that interview. The last question I have for you. So if you had to decide when you take a decision for your business, what North Star do you aim at? What is the thing you're looking at to take a decision?
Well, firstly, I mean, when I take a decision, I want to know what the end result, like, what am I aiming at the end result, right? What I'm trying to
The
achieve with
North
the
Star.
decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that, and how achievable is it? Do I have the resources to achieve that direction I'm aiming at, right? I mean, I'm not going to overextend myself. I want to be comfortable with what I can get done, but I'm aiming high, in that sense. So, um, do I have the right team to implement? Implement.
Yeah, yeah.
While it could be a decision, but execution is very
Is
important.
key.
And
Execution is key. Yes.
what I'm realizing is that I have a lot of great ideas and a lot of ways to move the company towards the North Star, but uh, I have to be um, also comfortable with, do I have the right resources, and how do I,
Yes.
because I,
Implementation.
yeah,
Yeah.
implementation. And so then it really comes down to the team you have. And so, right now I'm looking to build the team. And for that, you got to find the right people, because that's important in the company that we are in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Karan, thank you so much. This is exactly what I wanted from this interview. It's visionaries like you who are actually moving this industry forward. And I so appreciate your time.
No, thank you, Peggy. It's a real pleasure to be here in the interview and to have met you. And what you're doing for the pet industry is critical and is great. So thank you for what you're doing for us.
Karan,
okay.
Thank you. I will stop the recording in a minute. Stay on the line for 2 more minutes so I can thank you personally.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Karan, for this interview and for your time today.
No, pleasure.
Bye.